So we are going to be moving on to our topic of conversation today. Well, it might be a couple of conversations rolled into one, but let's get started, okay? So I found a verse that resonated with me, and I'm going to share that with you, okay? The verse is from Proverbs, and it is Proverbs 3 from the Passion Translation. That's a new translation for me. Well, a lot of them are new for me. But I digress. Let's move on. So let's get started. As wisdom increases, a great treasure is imparted, greater than many bars of refined gold. It is a more valuable commodity than gold and gemstones, for there is nothing you desire that could compare to her, which is Lady Wisdom. And what I'm going to be discussing today, or rather sharing my thoughts and based on Bible verses, is going to tie into some things regarding women, because this is Women's History Month and I am a woman. And because we're women every day, right? And we go through a lot of different challenges and all kinds of trials and things like that. So we pick up gems and treasures along the way. We are the core base of our families, not because we are discounting the men, but because we are the nurturers. And when things are falling apart, they look to the women in order for them to get the wisdom, the treasures, and the support that they need. And when we are broken, in terms of not getting what we need in return, in terms of us not being listened to and being discounted or abused or neglected or rejected in our own homes by people that are supposed to love us, the chain starts to break and things start to fall apart. And you can't, what is that term? You cannot squeeze blood from a turnip. Well, you can't, because there is no blood in a turnip. And you can't expect there to be growth in a place where there is no soil that is fertilized properly in order for there to be growth. So I chose this particular passage because I believe that treasures, gems, they're meant to be shared. And that is the wisdom that we gather along the way. And that is what we have been through in our many trials and tribulations and journeys in life. And when we don't share those things, we keep them bottled up because we're afraid of being judged and criticized, just like I spoke in earlier conversations with you all. It stifles not just our growth, but it also stifles the blessings that we're supposed to share with those around us. We're not supposed to keep those things in. They're not supposed to be secrets. God wants us to share those things with others because He wants our blessings, which was messes, and that's how they became blessings. Messes that turn into messages, tests that turn into testimonies, to share them. And when we don't, we are doing not only ourselves a disservice, but we're doing our loved ones and those around us a disservice as well. Okay? So today we're going to speak about Esther. Now, Esther is a book in the Bible. It talks about this young woman who was not able to be raised by her parents. Not really sure what happened to the mother, but I do know that the father, I believe, passed away, and there was only one person to take care of her, and that was an elder cousin. And the older cousin, for all intent and purposes, I will call him the stepfather or the uncle, okay? Because he took charge of her and he raised her. Now, she went through some challenges because eventually he had to let her go. And his way of letting her go was by her being put in a position where she had to be chosen among a whole group of young virginal women who needed to be selected by a very disgruntled and unhappy king. And the king was unhappy because his wife, who he chose to be his queen, rejected him. In his mind, he felt rejected. I think that he really was embarrassed because she told him that she would not come over with only her crown on to perform and flaunt herself around in front of him and his friends. She didn't want to do that because she was having a party of her own with the other wives and her girlfriends and the other concubines. And this was an era where there were wives and concubines and they all existed in the same space. They don't do that today. Well, at least they don't do that we are accepting of or liking because they do it, but they do it behind our backs, right? So in any case, it's not about that. What this is about is this young woman who was given to these people in order for her to be able to continue to grow up and have a place to live. I guess that was the thought process of the uncle. Now, upon digging, you may draw your own conclusion. Maybe the uncle was looking out for his own selfish needs because he wanted to not only protect his people, but he also wanted to rule. And he knew that he would never be able to do that because they were not accepted. They were Jewish, and they were not accepted at all by the king or anyone in that part of the land. They were outsiders, so they could not say anything about their heritage. So they were ostracized. A lot of them were beaten, enslaved, killed. And so the story resonated with me because this woman was told, this young girl, and at the time, the ages of 14 and 15 seemed to be consensual age for women who are not yet women, but because they have the body parts of women, are put into positions where they have to act as though they are women. And they are married off. They are told to have babies and raise families and farm land and take care of the children in the household while the man went out and did whatever it was that he was doing. This was completely acceptable in that time. And I believe that they still do that in many other countries. I'm not really sure which ones. I'm not going to sit here and tell you which ones of those that they are, but you know which ones they are. And so in this particular part of the story, her uncle overhears, like I said, I will be calling him the uncle. So the uncle overhears that there was some rift between the king and the queen, and they were looking for a new queen because all of the king's friends said, oh no, we cannot have her saying no. How dare she say no? We'll have all our wives telling us no. They're supposed to come and do what we say, what we're supposed to want and need. Whatever we want and need, we're supposed to receive when we ask, how we ask, period. They're never supposed to say no. And if she says no and gets away with it, well, then you're going to encourage all the other women to do the same. So this is what you should do. So they encouraged the king to have this big sort of Miss Universe, so you will, type of event where the women had to go to school for like 12 months. And it was sort of a charm school meets, I've never heard of such a thing. So I don't even know what to call it other than saying that they were preparing them to be sold or given away to these strange men, that this strange man that they didn't know and he didn't know them, and he only looked for beauty because that's all he cared about. He was a man who was very, like a lot of men, very visual. They like what they like and they are attracted to that and they act on that. So he may have had some good qualities, but they only spoke about the qualities in him that made me think these women, they would have choices, but if they say no, they will be kicked out of the kingdom, ostracized, and killed, or thrown into places that would not allow them to ever be able to be remarried again. But that's the way that they decided to do it, because men ruled in that time, and they didn't give Lady Wisdom time to flourish in their homes because they didn't trust women. I don't even know if they really liked women at all. So aside from using them for their personal pleasures, they didn't care about how women felt or what their issues may have been, because it didn't matter to them. They only cared about themselves. So moving on. So he overhears this thing. He sends a message to his niece, and she receives the message and she says, okay, well, what do I do? So she enters this school, and the school is teaching her everything from hygiene to how to comb her hair, how to dress or not dress, how to put on the makeup, what smell good she needs, from shampoos and oils and perfumes and massage oils and all kinds of scented things and aromatic, well, how do you say it? Aromatic things that were pleasing to the man. And she was only supposed to dress a certain way, which would show her curves in silky, satiny type materials that would definitely catch the eye of a king. And they had to continue this process with this woman, who I will call, for all intent and purposes, a madam. Because most of these girls, they weren't just, they called them virgins and they called them young, but they were children. And so she was madam to them, but she was also the only real mother figure that some of them knew, because a lot of them did not have real places of their own to live. So when you go and you dig into the storyline, and it's the book of Esther, okay? So when you go and you dig into the story, you start to wonder, why would these young women allow themselves to be put in this type of position? Well, then you start to realize this wasn't a time where they had any choice, because they didn't. They had to do what they were told to do. And in this case, it was to become the queen, because the first queen was being ostracized and kicked out of the king's castle. And they were to live there with all intents and purposes like a queen. And they were to be called upon him whenever he felt the need. Now, things were going along fine. And she went ahead and she did what she was supposed to do. And she was chosen. Esther was chosen